Hi guys, it's Izzy and I'm so excited for this video. Like, I'm trying to branch out a bit more on my channel with like types of videos I make, and this is something that I've been so excited to do for ages and ages and ages. Like, I just love watching videos on this sort of topic, and it is a haunted house video. Like, this is one of the biggest cases and one of the like most documented cases of ghost hauntings in the UK, and it is I'm so excited to cover it. Like, I've done quite a lot of research on this case, so I hope you enjoy watching. Cue intro. So, as you can tell from the title of this video, it's all about the Enfield house haunting, and this story is actually what the film The Conjuring 2, the best horror film in the world, so if you haven't already watched it, please watch it. It's literally the best horror film in the world, is based on. So I'm basically going to take you through like what happened and how similar it is to the actual movie, and we're going to weigh up the evidence whether or not it was a real haunting or whether it was just a giant hoax. So the hauntings occurred on 284 Green Street in Enfield in London, and this occurred during the 1970s, mainly throughout the like late 1970s, and this story, when it broke, was huge. Like, it was covered in national newspapers, they did interviews with the BBC, it was in the Daily Mail, it was just everywhere. Like, and to think for like a story to be this big, like, it needed quite a lot of substance. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if I said like, oh, my house is haunted, I doubt that like it would make like national headlines. Like, it was a huge story. Now, the Conjuring series is actually about Ed and Lorraine Warren. They were paranormal experts, and they themselves are like really interesting, so I'm definitely thinking about making a video of them themselves, because like there's a lot on them, so I think that would make quite an interesting video. So if you want to see that, let me know in the comments and I will get on that. So in The Conjuring 2, it's actually Ed and Lorraine who sort of saved the day.
Hi there, I'm Lorraine. Mind if I have a seat?
Apart from that, didn't really happen like that in the actual story. Guy Lyon Playfair, who was one of the main like investigators on the case, claimed that the Warrens actually turned up unannounced to the house, but they heard about the case and they thought it was a case of demon possession, so they came over from America and were like, we need to go to London, England. Quite a good excuse to go sightseeing as well, I suppose. But yeah, they were uninvited and basically only stayed for a day. So they were present on the case, just not to the extent at all which it was made out in the film. But a lot of paranormal experts themselves actually like took part in this case, as well as a lot of critics, so this was a hugely investigated case. The family that was affected by this, that lived in the house at the time, were the Hodgson's family. So it was Peggy the mum, Janet, who was 11 at the time, who experienced most of the hauntings, Margaret, who I couldn't actually find her exact age online, like it varies between saying that she was 12 and saying that she was 14, but she was the oldest sister either way. Then there was Johnny, who was 10, and Billy, who was 7. Now, the girls claim that these hauntings happened after they were playing with a Ouija board, and then on August the 30th, yeah, in August of that year, Janet and Johnny, they were in their bedroom, and then they started screaming because the furniture was apparently moving. Now, in the film, it's Margaret and Janet that have this happen to them, but in real life it was Janet and Johnny. So Peggy ran into the room. She was like, kids, behave yourselves, like, you got school in the morning, go to bed and all this. And they claimed that a chest of drawers was moving by itself towards the door. So Peggy came in and was like, stop being silly. And then Janet saw it for herself. The chest of drawers moved towards the door by itself. And then Peggy tried to move the chest of drawers back and she couldn't move it. And this obviously freaked the family out. So they ran across to their neighbour, Vic Nottingham, and asked him to have a look at the house and like find out what was going on. So he went in the house, and then he could hear knocking from the walls. And then when he went into one of the rooms, he saw on the floor that there was a box of Lego, but as he was walking through the room, Lego started flying about the room and he couldn't really tell where it was coming from. Like, he presumed it was from the box, but like it didn't seem like it was just like coming from the box, it was just being thrown at him. And these pieces of Lego, they were like hitting him hard. Like, he claimed that he got one on the elbow and it came out in a massive lump. Like, for a piece of Lego to make a like lump, it's got to be thrown quite hard. So he was freaked out and he ran out the door and he called the police. Like, you can see in interviews with him that he is like bricking it.
One piece hit me on the arm, and
did it hurt?
Oh, it brought a lump up. It caught me on the elbow and it brought a lump up. And as I
one
say,
tiny little piece?
One tiny little piece of Lego. Just after that, his chair was lifted off the ground and it was thrown about 9 foot through the air, a good 9 foot, for no reason whatsoever. No one was on the end of it. Didn't touch no one, just went a straight line down the room.
And what did you do?
I ran out the room again.
So then 2 police officers were called to the scene and they investigated it, and then themselves they heard the knocking on the walls, and then the weird bit happened. I actually have a quote from one of the police officers that said she saw a chair flying across the, well, levitating across the room. She said it came off the floor nearly half an inch, I would say. I saw it slide off to the right about 3 or 4 feet before it came to a rest, and that was Caroline Heaps, the police officer. So she has no reason to sort of make it up, do you know what I mean? She even like did a written statement and everything and swears down that this happened, and she was freaked out as well. So she tried to like check for wires. She even put a marble in the place that the chair had levitated from to see whether, you know, it was going to move on its own as well, and this marble didn't move. Like, it was not slanting, it stayed dead on the floor where it was. So she claims that this happened. She like still to this day swears that this happened, and the police officers, after sort of seeing these hauntings, they were freaked out as well, and they left the scene. And they said that since no one was technically breaking the law, it had nothing to do with them and it wasn't a police matter. So basically they just did anything to get out of there. So then weird hauntings sort of started happening to the family. Like, cups of water started filling up by themselves, the kitchen floor would just start to flood by itself, oven gloves would catch on fire, and the scariest thing for the family is when a curtain wrapped itself around Janet's neck. And then the children could also levitate, like they were starting to like move by themselves. And it was also witnessed from outside by 2 people walking past the house that Janet was levitating by herself across a window. Like, they could see from the window outside that she was levitating. Then this was being investigated, and Maurice Gross was an investigator and also an inventor, but he investigated paranormal activities, and he was trying to speak to the poltergeist while the whole family was present. So they were all in the same room together, so no one was like outside knocking on the walls and all that. And he took voice recordings from the children's rooms that night, and the children, one night you can hear them screaming because one of the lights went off from across the room. Like, it was the girls in the room, and the light goes out because the socket's been pulled from the plug. Like, so he was like investigating all these weird stuff that was just going on. And in terms of the levitation, a photographer for the newspaper, I think it was the Daily Mail, one of the newspapers, there was a photographer and he was taking pictures for the newspaper, and although he wasn't present at the actual time, he set up a camera in Janet's room that would go off every 15 seconds and record what was going on. So I'm gonna leave the photos like here. Now, okay, it goes off every 15 seconds, but I don't know about you, but for me personally, it does look like she's jumping off the bed. Like, her leg movements show exactly how someone would like jump off a bed. So these pictures have been disputed quite a bit, but like her whole family claims that it was her being dragged from the bed. But at the same time, even if she is jumping off the bed, that seems to be pretty high for jumping off a bed. Like, I don't think I could jump off that high. It's not the most reliable evidence for the case of her levitating, but it's still some evidence. Now, Maurice was talking to like these spirits, and Janet started making noises. Like, it seemed like she was being possessed, and this happened to Margaret as well, but it was mainly Janet with the most voices. So this voice was barking and it was whistling and it was making noises that it wasn't Janet making them.
The barking here is quite extraordinary, actually.
And then on the 12th of December, the voices started talking because Maurice said, all we need now is the voices to talk, because he claimed that if they could bark, if they could whistle, then they would be able to talk. Now, the girls were asked how many voices they think were talking to them, and Margaret said that there was a lot of voices, like, but most of them were speaking rubbish, and she said there was only about 10 sensible ones that came through, like, that actually made sense. And one of the main voices that came through was the voice of Bill Wilkins, who supposedly had gone blind before he died and then had a hemorrhage, and he had died in the living room chair downstairs. Now, this was backed up by records, and it turns out this was true. There really was someone called Bill Wilkins that lived in the house before them, and he had died in the downstairs chair. Now I'm going to put some footage in of Janet speaking in this voice.
Shall we try and speak to him? No. We'll see if he'll speak to us.
Yeah.
Is anybody there?
No.
Who's there?
Doctor
Doctor Who?
So you can see that it's not really like her voice. Like, however, this footage was disputed a lot. Like, people claim that it was a fake voice that she was putting on. However, Maurice claimed that the girls would do this for hours and hours and hours, and they'd have no strain on their voice. So he saw it as being reliable because he didn't think the girls would be able to put on such a voice for so long without them actually like hurting their voice. Also, from the footage, people have criticised it because every time the voice seems to come on, Janet seems to sort of cover her mouth somehow. However, if the girls are telling the truth, this doesn't really matter, because the girls claim that the voices weren't really coming from their mouths anyway. They claim that it was more coming from like a force behind their necks. And Maurice Grosse claimed that he also filled the girls' mouths up with water and they could still hear the voices coming through, so it really wasn't coming from their mouths anyway. However, conveniently, there is no recorded footage of this happening. He just claims that this happened and the whole family says it happened. But the most convincing piece of evidence, in my opinion, that this might be true is from Terry Wilkins, who was Bill's son, and he claims that the voice that Janet was saying and coming through Janet was actually the voice of his father, and that he spoke in the same mannerisms as his father, and he was like, no, that's my father. Like, so he was convinced that this was actually the voice of his dad. However, the language that the children were actually speaking in and the sort of like mannerisms that they were performing, it's been criticised as well, because people have said that the voices, they seem to change subject quite a lot, which is a habit that Janet had herself, and that it just seemed like something that any teenager could make up. Like, it just seemed like she was just like speaking as herself, just putting on a different voice. So these went on for quite a while, like all these hauntings, like a couple of years, and eventually a priest had like gone to the house, tried to clear it of spirits, and the hauntings reduced a bit, but they are still said to be there to this day. Like, I don't think anyone lives in the house at the moment, but neighbours have been like reported to hear knocking from the walls and all that, so they never fully went away after.
One of the neighbours came outside their house, and he just lives right next to the Enfield house, so we crossed the road and we spoke to him. He seemed like a nice guy, and he told us that he did not want his face to be shown on camera, so I had to film the floor down. So how long have you been living here then?
10 years.
10 years.
I went on holiday, and the day I went on holiday on 10th of June was the day when the film came out. So when I came back in 2 weeks' time, then my neighbours disappeared.
You said about the noise, you actually heard that?
But really, sometimes it goes on for about a week or two, then it stops.
Seriously?
And there's no plumbing going through there either, so I could hear it in the on the kitchen ceiling.
Hear
so
what? What is it? What type of sound is it?
It varies. Sometimes it's like a bearing dropping and it's going ding, 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 and it stops. Then it sometimes goes to.
That's weird.
Now for the evidence. Was it real? Was it a giant hoax? Let's discuss. So in an interview with the BBC, Janet was asked if she was being haunted, and she said, no, not really. And then Margaret chipped in and was like, shh, shut up.
How does it feel to be haunted by a poltergeist?
It's not haunted. Shut up.
Why isn't it haunted?
I don't know.
However, the girls then went to backtrack this, and they said they didn't really feel like they were being haunted. It felt like they just got used to it, and that the presence felt like it was more trying to be part of their family. So Janet sort of like backtracked this and said, oh no, it doesn't feel like I'm being haunted, it just feels like there's something there that wants to be part of the family. However, in an interview later, Janet and her sister had admitted to the Daily Mail that they had faked about 2% of the phenomena. However, people have thought, well, if they've admitted to that, they've probably faked like a lot more, and people think that they've faked 100% of it. Also, just like in the film, Janet was caught faking a lot of it. Like, there was supposedly a poltergeist that trashed the whole kitchen, yet Janet was caught on film bending spoons, trying to bend metal bars, and just trashing the kitchen herself. Also, the poltergeist never seemed to be present on command. Like, whenever communication was tried to be made with it on camera or for a documentary, it didn't happen.
How we first got contacted this was when Mr. Gross said, if there's anyone there, knock twice with yes, and if not, one for no.
I wonder if we did that now, whether it would answer. Is anybody there? Is anybody there?
However, an argument against this could be that like the poltergeist was just trying to mess with the family, so why would it appear if they were trying to prove that it was really there? Do you know what I mean? If it's just trying to wind them up. But evidence for it being real is that there was a total of 17 witnesses at least that had seen this go on. Like, neighbours had seen it happening, people had seen it happening from outside, like police officers had seen it, like, so it seems like a lot of people to be in on the joke. Also, something I need to note is that Janet especially, but the rest of her siblings, they were all bullied at school for this, so it seems like why would you make it up if you're going to be an active target to it? Do you know what I mean? They still insist to this day that this happened. So even though they may have exaggerated the stories, it still seems likely that there is some truth behind them. So in terms of finding out what really happened, the only people that will really ever know is the Hodgins family and anyone that will continue to live there, I guess. They all still to this day claim that they were telling the truth, even if they did exaggerate slightly. So yeah, that is the story of the Enfield haunted house. Let me know in the comments whether you have seen The Conjuring 2, the best film ever. And let me know in the comments whether you want me to cover more of this sort of topic, because I really enjoy researching it and it's just a lot of fun to film. So I hope that you've enjoyed watching. I know it's been a bit of a long one, but I hope that you've enjoyed. So thanks for watching. I make new videos every single Wednesday at 5 PM and all my social media links are in the description below, so if you want to check them out, that would be much appreciated. And thanks for watching. I will see you guys soon. Bye.